There are these invisible giants all around us. They're like floating cities of steel, silently connecting our entire world, powering our economies, and honestly, shaping history itself. We're talking about ships. And even if you don't see one every day, their impact is absolutely everywhere. So in this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on the world of ships, how they affect our lives, and how you can understand pretty much any vessel you see out on the water.
Right from the start, ships have had this fascinating, two-sided nature. On one hand, they were the tools of empire and conquest, but on the other, they were vessels of discovery, of helping people, of sharing ideas. This quote it nails that huge, often contradictory role they've played all through human history.
And if you're thinking, okay, but that was then, well, take a look at this number, 1.8 billion. That's how many tons of stuff we're talking: cargo, fuel, crew, the whole shebang. The world's merchant fleet can carry at any given moment. That number is just staggering. It shows you the insane scale of global trade that completely depends on the sea.
So, let's zoom in on today. How does this massive fleet actually shape our lives right now? Well, it's about way more than just the container ships bringing you your new sneakers. It's about the raw materials for everything we built, the energy that powers our lives, and even military might.
Okay, check this out, because this chart tells a really interesting story about our economy. Look at that. A whopping 71% of the world's nearly 50,000 merchant ships are either bulk carriers, hauling stuff like grain and coal, or oil tankers. They're the real foundation, carrying the raw fuel and materials our entire world is built on. The container ships, the ones we always hear about, they're actually a much smaller piece of the puzzle.
And it's not just about commerce, right? Sea power is still a huge deal in geopolitics. But look at this chart. It's probably not what you expected. If you're just counting the number of ships, the U.S. Navy isn't number one. It's a great reminder that naval strategy isn't just about having the biggest aircraft carriers. Sometimes it's about numbers and having lots of different types of ships. Kind of fascinating, huh?
Okay, so we've talked a lot about what ships do. But what even is a ship? Sounds like a super simple question, right? But believe it or not, the distinction is actually pretty important.
So here's the classic definition. The key words to remember here are large, oceans, and deep waterways. It really comes down to scale and capability. A ship is built to handle the toughest environments on the planet.
And this slide lays it out perfectly. The general rule of thumb is this: ships are big, they cross oceans, and they are incredibly complex machines. Boats, on the other hand, are smaller. They usually stick closer to the coast or on rivers, and they're just simpler. Sure, there are exceptions, but that's the basic idea.
All right, now we get to the really practical, cool part of this explainer. With tens of thousands of different vessels out there, how are we supposed to make sense of it all? Well, turns out there's a 5-part framework that lets you classify pretty much any ship you'll ever see.
So yeah, how in the world do you even begin to categorize more than 49,000 different ships? It all comes down to asking 5 simple questions.
First things first, you look at a ship's purpose. What is it designed to carry? This is the most common way to think about it because a ship's shape, its form, almost always follows its function.
And here are the big ones. You've got your bulk carriers for loose stuff like coal, container ships for all those boxes, tankers for liquids like oil. Then there are specialized LNG carriers with those cool-looking bubble tanks for natural gas. You've also got ro-ro ships, which stands for roll-on, roll-off, and they're basically giant floating parking garages for cars and trucks. And of course, passenger ships, everything from a local ferry to a giant cruise liner.
The second question to ask is, what's it built from? This might seem a little obvious, but the material really dictates a ship's size, its strength, and what it can be used for.
For any big ocean-crossing ship, the answer is going to be steel, pretty much every time. But other materials are super common for smaller vessels and boats. You'll see fiberglass, aluminum, even wood and rubber for more specialized craft. Each one's got its own pros and cons.
All right, method number 3. This one gets right to the heart of the vessel. What kind of engine is making it go? This is the power plant that has to move thousands and thousands of tons across an entire ocean.
The huge majority of ships today run on absolutely massive diesel engines, but you'll also see things like gas turbines, especially on Navy ships, and even nuclear power for submarines and giant icebreakers. And, this is really cool, wind power is actually making a comeback with some amazing new high-tech sails to help save fuel.
But, having a big engine is only half the battle. You have to actually transfer that power into the water to move forward. And that brings us to our fourth method: how does the ship create thrust?
for like 99% of modern ships, the answer is simple: propellers. It's just the most dominant, most efficient tech we've got. But you'll also see things like water jets on some high-speed ferries, and of course, sails are still around on both old-school and super-modern boats. Hey, even oars count as thrust, though you're probably not going to see them on a container ship.
And finally, our fifth question: where is this ship designed to operate? Because its home environment totally changes how it's designed.
So an overseas ship is built like a tank, with a really deep hull so it can handle monster waves out in the ocean. A coastal ship might be a bit smaller, built for shorter trips. And a river ship, it's going to be long and flat-bottomed, designed to navigate shallow water. You just can't take a river ship out into the open ocean. It wouldn't last a day.
So there you have it, a complete framework for understanding these vessels that rule the waves. And this isn't just, some abstract information. It's a toolkit, a new way of looking at the world. And here it is, all in one spot, your 5-point checklist. What does it carry? What's it made of? How is it powered? How does it move? And where does it sail? If you ask these 5 questions, you can identify and understand pretty much any ship you'll ever see. It's that simple.
So the next time you're near the water or you see a harbor in a movie, you won't just see ships. You'll see it all. You'll see steel-hulled bulk carriers powered by diesel engines with propellers built for overseas travel. You'll see the entire global economy moving right in front of you. So, my question to you is, what will you notice first?